Hello, friends. It's Josh. So good to see you. What a day. Uh, Earlier, if you weren't part of my earlier live where I was going over the book chapters, I mispronounced Cloudflare. I was calling it Cloudflare because all of the things that I wanted to show in the earlier live, they weren't working today. But luckily, we are back up and running, and I can't wait to share with you chapter 2 of the book, which talks about the human machine performance analyst. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and let's jump into that. Again, I want to thank you so much for hanging out with me. Just a little bit of background on this particular chapter. I had to think long and hard about how the L&D profession was going to evolve and change in the age of AI. Uh, Having been in this space for 30 plus years, I've seen evolutions and things happen with various technologies from desktop computer to CD-ROM and internet and mobile phone. And now here we have artificial intelligence. And through each of those evolutions, there was one constant, and that was human performance. Now it's a little bit different because we are now faced with the reality of humans working with machines. And so it is definitely a different type of reality, but one that we can take on, right? So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into chapter 2. All right. So I want to first go in and start out, there we go, with this reality of artificial intelligence creating courses. Yeah, you've seen it. You know what I'm talking about, to where you upload a standard operating procedure, you upload a job aid, you upload a PowerPoint presentation, and the whole entire course is created. Now, obviously, there's a lot of work to be done. This isn't perfect, but you can see where we're headed. And eventually, it will be perfect or close to perfect. So then the question comes up, well, what are we going to do now? Now, I started my career as an individual contributor, and as an art director creating content. That was my passion. I love getting in there and doing video and creating courses and all kinds of great software tools, like Authorware and Director. If you know, you know, all the way through Captivate and Storyline, all these great tools. But what do these tools create content automatically, right? Then what do we do? What's our role then? And so, uh, you know, it's a good question, right? Now, I have this wonderful ability to put comments up live. So if you are here, thank you so much for being with me. And uh, you know, I I do I do appreciate it. So I'm gonna be able to see those comments now as we roll through this, so I can react. All right. Uh, so I just like to know who's here. I see a few folks that are in the live. So if you want to just shout out and say, hey, that'd be great, or not. It's completely up to you. Um, but when I gave this presentation at DevLearn last week, we had a breakdown of individual contributors. We had leaders. There are so many people that are concerned about where this profession is headed. And, um, it can be daunting, to think about um, where we're going and what's around the corner. But I hope after I give you this breakdown of chapter 2 that you feel inspired, a little bit educated, and not only that, but actionable as far as what's next. And Mark, my friend, how you doing? Good to see you here. So we are most definitely at a crossroads. You can feel it. At DevLearn, I felt it even prior, going back to the spring, those conferences that were happening then. You can feel it. There's something that's happening across this whole entire industry. But where we were once in a position of not understanding, not having clarity, not understanding the vision of this profession, I feel much more confident in saying that we are headed in the right direction. Definitely. We're going to get off the content treadmill and be orchestrators. And I'll get into that a little bit more in just a bit. There's also this reality of skill volatility. Hey, Bianca, so glad you're here. And to where we have AI eroding away skills from the people that we support. What does that reality looks like? And business impact of AI still being proven, right? So we have a lot of disruptions that are happening, various speeds that they're occurring. So where does that place us as learning professionals? Well, we can go ahead and take a step back and look at the patterns that are forming out there in the marketplace. You're seeing AI being implemented in various tools and platforms. We can kind of get an idea of where things are headed in regards to AI agents, skills, what's happening with skill erosion or expertise, what's happening there, and also hyper personalization as content creation begins to crash down. And as we have access to more data, especially persona information, skill gap information, you can begin to see how that hyper personalization comes into being, right? And if we before we get into that reality, let's first go in and take a step back and look, where were we at? Now, again, I started back in the 90s, and that was all about content creation, to where we were creating custom courses. And let me tell you, it was definitely a challenge because a CD-ROM back then would take anywhere from 4 to 6 months to create. And by the time we delivered it to, 10 or 15,000 tellers, things changed. And so there's a lot of velocity now where we have the opportunity to go in and update content even in real time to even contemplate thinking about self-healing courses and what that looks like. But then as we got into the internet, we found ourselves curating content, right? We see lynda.com and LinkedIn Learning and Pluralsight and Open Sesame and all these different platforms that would have tons of content, but nobody would use it, right? It's there. Not necessarily motivated to go out and spend your lunch watching a course. Some people were. But that it in itself is getting more mature, and we are getting personalization even within those platforms or personalized learning paths, right? So AI is impacting those. Fast forward to ChatGPT and generative AI. So we are now in the generation phase where we can see content creation crashing down. It's much easier to create audio, video, images, definitely text. But where do we go from there? As risk is mitigated and we start leveraging automations, these tools that we have been using will eventually become headless, to where they sit on a server, an agent or some other type of automation calls out to that platform or tool, generates the hyper personalized learning experience, and that gets disseminated out, right? Hey, Catherine, good to see you. And so we get into automation. So we're definitely in between the generation automation phase of our profession. And we're going to be going from course makers to performance orchestrators, to where we're going to be turning dials to adjust all of these learning experiences that get sent out to our front lines, to the people that we support. And instead of saying, hey, I build training, focus is going to be solely on performance, and not just human performance. We're talking about humans working with machines, humans working with AI. That's a net performance. All the work that we're going to be doing is going to be very numbers driven. So the check boxes are going to be looking way different. Way different. And the work that we do is going to be focused in on that reality of humans working with machines. And what does that look like? So our role is evolving into a human machine performance analyst. Again, chapter 2, I go deep into this topic. And, some constants that we have here with this new role is learning design, adult learning principles, learning science, those tenets that we build upon, those aren't changing. So whether you're creating the content or an agent is creating the content, we're still going back to science. Matter of fact, those attributes, those realities that we have, that we lean into, those are going to be the foundations of these automations. Let me give you an example. So an optimal speaking rate is 150 words per minute. Optimal. And there's empirical evidence with that. So, if we have that reality, well, then we can lean into it and leverage agents to go in and create optimal scripts or optimal videos with that speaking rate. So if we don't understand that, well, then you might be creating a TikTok with a very, very fast speaker that may lose more than half your audience just because of cognitive load. And so learning design, yes, it's going to be very critical. Data and analytics. So better get your data and analytics book out. I know Megan Torrance wrote a good one. And so what are we going to do with that? Well, if we work lockstep with the business, which I believe that's what's going to end up happening in a federated model to where some of your peers are going to be working centralized to maintain operations with AI, because things are going to move fast. And if changes happen to tools and platforms, vetting that out, clearing it by IT, and disseminating it down into the work, disseminating it down into the lines of business is going to happen. Now, those individuals that are working down with the business, they need data. They need reality. They need sources of truth. And so we're going to put on our performance consulting hat, working with the business and understanding the validity of that data. Is it true? Do we have a skill or knowledge gap or an attitude that needs to be adjusted? And if so, how do we do that? How does that happen? Through the orchestration of learning experiences down in work that we control, we'll send out these experiences, and then, of course, the people that we support are going to consume them. And then, did it work? Right? Did we move the needle? That's the analytics part. And based upon those numbers, what do we have to change? What dials do we need to shift for additional experiences to be even more efficient, to hit the right channel, to be the right type of content? That is essentially how important data and analytics is. So if you have to brush up on that, I highly recommend that. And then business impact. I know it's kind of covered up there with my comments, but yeah, business impact. What are we doing as we work with the business, lockstep with the business, and understanding those problems and making sure that we are putting out the right learning journey for our associates? So let's take a little hypothetical example of Maria working in compliance. She may go in and create a compliance course, which is going to be completed, but maybe people aren't paying attention. The new reality is we have agentic browsers to where you can go in and prompt, and the agent will go in and do things for you in a browser. What do you think is the possibility of your associates using one of these browsers to take a compliance course. Yeah, that's our new reality. And we can have issues where there is no behavior change whatsoever. So, yes, check the box. They completed the course, zero behavior change. Well, if we start to rethink about this particular situation as a human machine performance analyst, we then get into a little bit more of the human part, getting that data, understanding, okay, who rushed through it, who is using the browser with the agent to take the course. Um, Again, being able to go in and collect these realities, and even the most human part, talking to people, right? Getting insights as to what happened and why we got these completion rates but no change. Getting back to the problem. So, with generative AI, it doesn't have to be a compliance course, right? And I know what you're thinking, like, oh my gosh, we need an LMS to get those completions. Well, do you? Right? My whole career, we've been in boxes. We've taken content, we've put it into a course. We've taken that course and we put it in another box, which is the LMS LXP. I'm not saying they're wrong. I mean, they have their roles to play. But wouldn't it be great if we could just go ahead and create some type of learning experience right in the moment or right when there's a little bit of downtime, highly effective, impactful, hyper personalized, and trackable without a learning management system? Yeah, that's our reality. And so, either through smart nudges, via text, or something in Slack or Teams, a little micro course on the compliance, a little follow up later. So, it's not really breaking somebody down for a half hour, right, to take a compliance course and gradually building that knowledge up over time. We've never been able to execute on that because we didn't have the proper resources, we didn't have the proper systems. Well, that's all changing. And so we can address the problem differently. And a human machine performance analyst is going to have the skills to do that. So, what do human machine performance analysts actually do? I mentioned data and analytics. You're going to get really good at it, no doubt about it, because not only understanding what's happening with the business up front, but also when you orchestrate learning experiences, what is happening off the back end? Are we moving the needle? Being a steward of AI. So, working with your peers and other functions, IT, HR, comms, legal, change management. We're currently going through a phase now where AI operations is being stood up, right? It's maturing. And what happens when associates get access to new models? We are the learning function, we are the performance function. And so, being stewards of that and making sure that we mitigate risk, it's AI is used securely, right? That's part of our job. Strategic alignment with the business, critical. Again, we are going to be working lockstep with the business, creating learning experiences in the flow of work. And so, understanding how we fit in regards to strategic alignment. What is our ROI? And, we have had some great professionals like Jack and Patty Phillips done tons of work around ROI, and it has been not you can't do it, you can, but it's going to be easier. It's going to be way easier to go in and identify all the systems and all of the time, all the resources that are required to orchestrate a learning experience, and then did we move the needle, right? Did we actually impact that KPI? And then finally, continuous improvement yourself as a professional. With artificial intelligence doubling in capabilities every 7 months, you got to be on it. This is not a one and done. right? So you may have taken that AI course, you may have gotten that certification, but it's going to be constant. So you have to find for yourself your community. Like, who are you hanging with that's going to go ahead and move you forward, that you can relate to, that's on the same trajectory as you, and the same, relationship to technology. What are your resources? Who are you watching on YouTube? What newsletters are you subscribed to? What course are you going to take this weekend, or during the holidays, right? I mean, you squirrel away a little bit of time. So your own personal learning plan moving forward is essential. I can't emphasize it enough. What does your 2026 look like? Because as we transform into this role, you're going to have to pick up business acumen. You're going to have to pick up data and analytics. You're going to have to understand those core learning science and adult learning principles as they're applied to agents and automations. Because we're talking about agency, right? The ability to go ahead and take a step back and identify when you have AI inside of a tool, inside of a platform, whether that content or whether that output is valid, right? So definitely some upskilling happening for learning professionals as we move forward. Okay, well, here's some other attributes for human machine performance analysts. Curiosity and ethics. Just because you can doesn't mean we should. So, when I think about ethics, I'm thinking about tracking the associate. Microsoft has process mining to where you can go ahead and track everything that's happening on somebody's screen. But should you? Yeah, it's great data. I mean, you can identify specific tasks that are happening within a workflow. But what does the associate feel about that? Same thing with persona information. I can go ahead and hyper personalize a learning experience, but what data do I need to make that happen? And does an associate want that information out there? A little bit of a double-edged sword, right? Communication and storytelling, essential. I talked about data and analytics. Well, on the back end of an effort, and you have all these analytics, are you able to tell the story around that data? Was there a knowledge lift? Was there impact in sales? And how did that relate back to the whole entire effort? Goes into business acumen. The language that you understand and the way that you communicate to your leaders, and especially if you're working lockstep with the business, is essential. AI literacy. Well, not just literacy, but fluency and even innovation. There is a progression. You can have baseline AI knowledge, right? You may even know how to prompt, or you understand how a vector database works or how an LLM is trained. And then as you get into fluency, you understand how an agent is engineered, how it functions, how it's architected, how automations are architected, so that when you go into a meeting, when solution setting is happening, you understand it. You can premeditate it. And innovation is when we are able to go in and create novel new experiences or platforms and tools internal to our organization that transforms what we do, right? So it's more than just literacy. There is a progression or an evolution that happens with you personally and with teams. That's right, Mark. There could almost be a spectrum running vertically next to that goes from the base heavy AI to the top heavy human. I got something coming up for you in just a bit, very similar to that. And then we get into data and analytics basics. I mentioned it already. Okay, no need to continue to beat that drum. So, so many people are worried about their jobs. I get it. I mean, we have organizations that are reducing capital expenditures for operational expenditures, especially technical companies or companies that want to go ahead and get data centers up and running. Cuts by Amazon, cuts by Verizon. I get it. It is tough out there. Okay. But I do believe even when we have learning experiences automated at the speed of business, someone's got to run policy on all this stuff, right? So are we going to be replaced by AI? Depends upon how you want to handle your future and the skill sets that you have. I do know we're being repositioned. And so are you going to be a part of that? Are you going to be a part of that story and repositioning yourself so that you still have value? So we move out of a cost center and we work lockstep with the business and we're creating learning experiences directly in the work itself. Now, I realize it's a big jump, but we're starting to move in that direction. Some people are moving faster than others. So here is a representation of these relationships that we have to monitor. The human AI task scale. Now, I so I have a better visual representation of this that I threw in here. I'm just you may want to close your eyes for a second because your pupils are going to dilate. There we go. Sorry about that. I have my one black slide in all of this. Anyways, take a look at the scale. Over on the left-hand side, we have human. That's us. All the way over on the right-hand side is autonomous agent. Doesn't exist. A fully autonomous agent doesn't exist. There's a human running policy on it somewhere. There's too much risk, right? These models are not perfect. They'll hallucinate. They'll make up information. When agents talk to agents, it's complex systems. Systems fail, right? So we do not have a fully autonomous agent. There's always human in the loop still to this day. But let's break down not only our relationship with technology, but the people we serve, right? The humans that we serve in regards to performance, and this is their reality too. If we take a look at level 2, human driven with AI support, that's prompting. Many of you are doing that today. Big human, little AI, tons of human in the loop, constantly checking, evolving, changing the prompt, getting back actionable outputs. 3, that is an automation. So if you create a GPT, a gem, something in Zapier or make.com with a hit on a model, that's human guided AI execution, right? Number 4 is the joint human AI collaboration. I love this one. For those of you that have access to OpenAI's agent, or you've been using the Atlas browser or Comet from Perplexity, so I'm talking about the ability to go ahead and give an agent a task. It goes out to the internet, performs that task while you do other work. Full collaboration. Unfortunately, some people are using those agents to take a course like compliance or take a test. That's our new reality. So let that simmer a bit. 5 is AI-driven, human-led. This is where we start getting into agents, not autonomous, but massive human in the loop. So maybe the agent is doing some work and you're checking the numbers or outputs from that agent daily or every hour or whenever. Maybe it's a dashboard kind of thing. 6, risk is mitigated, but we still have massive human in the loop. Okay. But it's maybe you're checking it once a week. And then we have 7, which is the agent doesn't exist. The autonomous agent is not there. Even though in the book I call it autonomous agent, because eventually from an engineering standpoint, it will be. One task that comes to mind is translation, right? So, we do have human in the loop, but I'm telling you that is going to be to a point where the error rate is going to be so low, way lower than a human. And you're going to have a specific agent that specializes in a regional language that's nailing it every single time. And so, okay, so maybe 1 or 2 words slip out of thousands and thousands of large documents. It's going to be better than a human. So we will get there. We will get autonomous agents, but with very low risk situations or error rates that are just almost non-existent. Now, I created that human AI task scale as I was writing the book, and my gosh, wouldn't you know it, a research paper comes out that's very similar. Lucky me. Um, I highly recommend screen capturing that URL down there, checking out this paper, Future of Work with AI Agents out of Stanford. Fascinating. Again, they have kind of a similar structure here. Uh, you can see it up at the top with the little illustrations there as far as a robot or a human, and then the breakdown of the relationship. But what was fascinating about this paper is there's a measurement of which tasks humans didn't mind a machine doing versus tasks that were very emotional or they were very attached to that task and they didn't want the machine to do that task. And I think that's the rub. This is going to be the issue moving forward is we're going to be supporting humans with the reality of AI taking away tasks that they love to do. Now what? Now what are we going to do? When you have individuals that don't have a line of sight on their future with the business because there is erosion of their tasks. And I just heard it at DevLearn. I had an individual, John, in my AI ethics buzz, morning buzz, describe a situation where he has a group of trainers, very passionate about what they do, and supporting frontline workers. And then all along comes an AI coach. And that AI coach massively eroded what those trainers do. Do you think those trainers are going to be motivated in their job? It's a very difficult situation. If we had systems in place to where we had a line of sight as far as what the business was doing, and then the required upskilling or reskilling of those trainers so that their roles evolved and changed to help support the business to where maybe they're not doing as much of that coaching, but maybe they're doing something else that was identified that they were passionate about and that they can be fully immersed into. That's the opportunity. So we're going to have this really weird time ahead of us as the definition of work changes, evolves. And as human machine performance analysts, we got to be on top of it. We got to be working with the business. We got to understand the definition of that work, maybe even contributing to it because we're going to be placing in that work learning experiences in the flow of work, right? So again, this is a good read. I still believe that no matter what we do, it's going to be deeply human, right? And so through coaching, through mentoring, through 360 reviews and 360 feedback, many of these opportunities are going to be before us that we're going to lean into, especially for new talent. One of the other risks that's out there is the erosion of novices becoming experts. If we have AI do all the novice work, how do we get new talent in to where they understand their role, they understand the edge cases, right? The outside stuff, the inside baseball of the business, and then they become experts. It's massive. And if you look at Matt Bean's The Skill Code, great book, highly recommend it. He gets in there and he has all this evidence of erosions happening between the relationship of novices and experts because of technology. So we need to be aware of that, especially if you're supporting roles where AI is having a huge impact. How is talent backfilling? What happens when individuals leave that have massive amounts of experience and they're working with AI? Who's going to jump into that role? What if they're running policy on agents? Right? That's complex. So we're not there at scale yet, but man, it is something to really think about, which gets into the human AI collaboration. I already went into it fully. And then get ready for automation. Yeah, it's going to happen. But again, which one of these, how much of these tasks are human centric where you got to run policy on agents or automations all the time, and which ones can be done by the machine. So I know traditionally, learning and development hasn't been part of work design. Well, somewhat. I've given feedback on systems before that I've done training on, but I think we're going to be just immersed ourselves in work, the design of work, specifically how learning experiences fit into that system, that tool, that workflow, more so than ever. So there's still issues with AI around ethics. And, as stewards of AI, we need to take up the mantle of making sure that the right questions are being asked and that this technology is being used properly for the people that we serve. And so, I mentioned issues earlier in regards to persona information, personal information, anything with talent management and leveraging AI to one, create job descriptions or to filter candidates. Tons of issues there. Here's the key: full transparency. Like, you need to let your associates understand if you're leveraging AI to monitor, to track, why? What is that data being used for? Can they opt out? Right? How is the privacy being maintained? And maintaining your dignity, right? And that's the thing, is that we're going to be presented systems, tools, platforms that are going to track humans and what they do so that we can optimize their performance. But should we? Right? What are your associates going to think about that? So we're going to have to maintain some type of balance because these tools are going to get very powerful, and it's going to be very tempting for a leader to want to go in and grab that essential data. But what happens to the human? What happens to your team member and their morale and the way they feel about their job if they're constantly being tracked all the time for the sake of data collection? All right. Um, just, so got to watch out for those ethical red flags. I mentioned a few already. Don't have to get back into it. But again, we want to keep and maintain the human as part of this. And I appreciate the feedback for those that are still with me here. Thank you. AI is going to be your co-pilot, not your autopilot. Okay. Yeah, there's still going to be massive human in the loop as AI improves and accelerates content creation, decision making, problem solving. We still have to go in and decide the direction. But let me tell you, the technology is wild because it can sift through so much data and give you patterns that would take you weeks to find out in a matter of minutes. It's going to give you novel solutions and ideas to problems that you have, things that were out of your view, and now it's widened. And the ability to go ahead and give you iterations of work that you never had time for. So there's tremendous upside in problem solving and productivity. But again, who's driving? And again, I think we're going to be driving here. And, just like it says right here on the slide, it doesn't know your people, your culture, your strategy, your ethics unless you teach it. And I do see, and I have one customer that is doing this. I have one customer that's creating an agent that maintains the tone of voice for the business. So if you're writing an email or especially external communication, everything is consistent in regards to the verbiage, the tone of voice, the naming of products, all checked by an agent. And that builds consistency throughout the whole organization. If you think about, so I've been involved with a rebrand, and part of that rebrand is the tone of voice of the bit, especially external facing marketing and comms. Well, if you had an agent that was checking for that consistency and it was, the risk is mitigated and was hitting it every single time. Wow, that would be massive, because now when you have new associates coming on board and they leverage that agent, they got it right away. They got that tone of voice. Very powerful. Okay. So let's talk about skills. Uh, totally down with skills and where skills are going and tasks. And so, um, whereas before we may have been attempting to go in and inventory skills, right? To get the right talent in place, to go ahead and identify potential training opportunities and so on. Well, all that manual stuff is going away, because skills and the way that skills are handled are going to be dynamic, fully dynamic. You can think of situations where we have AI agents that are doing a percentage of work. And just by that alone, the definition of a skill or the amount of a skill is going to change, right? The way that tasks are completed are going to change. And so we need to have systems in place to monitor this reality. So real-time skill intelligence, continuous, adaptive, predictive, just like a weather report. Hey, what agents came online last week and what tasks are they completing? So that we can go ahead and upskill or reskill our associates on some new proficiency that's going to be very human and aligned to the business. So your skill data ecosystem, very important. HR, performance data, external data, tapping into the reality of a role and what skills are happening out there in the marketplace. Think about prompt design or prompt engineering. Man, that wasn't on the board in 2019, 2020. For some roles, that's really critical. So that new reality hit the marketplace, and believe me, changes are going to happen very fast when it comes to roles and different skills as AI begins to take away tasks. And we have just like a human machine performance analyst, right? That role is a new role. So we have to have external data, learning systems. So, validating skill acquisition, and then work systems, access to data, project tools, CRM, ticketing, collaboration tools, and so on. Now, there's more to the ecosystem than that. There's some big buckets here. As far as some functionality that you need to have or access to data that you need for a skill environment, data integration, predictive analytics, NLP or natural language processing, natural language processing analysis, continuous learning, and real-time analysis, right? And so these are skills that we need to acquire. These are platforms and tools that we need to put online, so that we can face this reality of AI eroding away and taking tasks away from our associates. But there definitely is a human layer here. And here's the thing. Even if we have some type of system or dashboard that's going to go ahead and give us real-time information about this erosion, there is that human aspect that's critical. So on paper, I can go ahead and see that my frontline trainers, part of their job is being taken away by AI through AI coaching. Now they're not doing that coaching anymore. So how do they feel about it? I can see it on paper. I can see it on a dashboard, but you're going to have to go have a conversation with that individual. You're going to have a conversation with that team. Maybe that conversation is, hey, you know what? We got you. We understand that this coaching is AI centric now, but you know what? We're going to go ahead and upskill you, reskill you, and you're going to be able to have additional mentoring, additional coaching. It just shows up different. Maybe it's more sophisticated type of coaching that AI can't do yet, right? So as a human machine performance analyst, it's just not that you're monitoring the relationship between humans and machines, is that you're leaning into the human, you're understanding, with your HR partners, the evolution of a role, and making sure that humans have a line of sight to their future. Very critical. So, there's this little case study here of, going in, discovering um, a decision making attribute or skill, and knowing that, hey, maybe we have associates that have these hidden talents, or can lean into some of these other capabilities. And once we understand those hidden capabilities, when they're not so much hidden anymore, being able to align any upskilling or reskilling programs so that they can maintain continuity with the organization in the age of AI, right? And again, we want to keep our people around. Extremely valuable. Here's an example of, if we have optimal data connectivity, we had AI that creates content on the fly, and we're going in and we are measuring both retention of information, application of it, and return on investment. So let me give you the breakdown of this. And this is a hypothetical. I mean, could this happen today? Oh, definitely. Like, we have all the tech to make this happen today. It's just many organizations don't have their data connected yet. Many organizations don't have maturation of AI operations to make this happen. So if you look down here, we have our sources of truth: sales data, personal coaching data, and AI model or AI transcripts. And we have an agent, like Salesforce or Agent Force agent, a CRM agent, a coaching agent, and a podcast agent that will create podcasts. The situation is, a tariff gets implemented on a Thursday. We won't have access to product A on Monday because it costs too much. So we got to go with product B. Frontline sales, they're going to be pulling into a customer's parking lot. They need to sell product B. They're not familiar with product B, right? But they got to sell it on Monday. This is our reality. So how does that show up? Well, based upon all this data, including information about the customer coming from the sales data, persona information coming from that individual's coach, the way they want to consume information. Maybe they enjoy listening to a podcast as opposed to reading a sales sheet. All those items are in line. And then we have the first experience, the podcast, the reality. The podcast could be from the director of sales talking about this new product, this new reality. We got to push product B. They consume the podcast, and we have all kinds of data from that. Did they complete the podcast? What was the net promoter score? What was the cognitive load rating on the podcast? Like, was it too fast? Were people talking too fast? Whatever. So many data points there. Then we want to go ahead and validate, do they understand the situation, right? So maybe they take a little quiz. And maybe this is something that's vibe programmed, or something that's completely customized just for that individual. Maybe it's a game, right? And so we have coaching, a little bit of quizzing going on right there, level 2, and with a coaching rubric and whatnot. Then comes the fun part. Okay, you're ready to go ahead and take on this customer, but you know what? I'm going to spin up an avatar. I'm going to spin up a coach. And that coach is going to be bi-directional. They know about that customer, and they're going to go ahead and give you 3 different scenarios where the customer is going to come back and fight you on the cost. They're going to go ahead and question some of the benefits of the product and so on. Well, now you got reps that you're sitting in the parking lot. Maybe they're 5 minutes each. By the time that's done, they're ready to go in and do the sell. They go in, they make the sale. We have data numbers as far as sale. So then we can tell exactly, based upon that activity of the consumption to the sell, did we move the needle? And if we have an idea of the cost of this AI infrastructure, what are the tokens that are being used? What's the cost of the system per associate? We can get an ROI. It's a beautiful thing. But again, in this reality, we have to have data connected. We have to have AI systems in place that are generating learning experiences on the fly that are hyper personalized. And we have to have mechanisms and dashboards to go ahead and take all of this, all the analytics that you see over there on the right-hand side, so that you can understand it, not only understand it, but tell leadership the story of the impact. It's very elegant. So I think as we move forward, we're going to be driving towards solutions like this, right? It's going to take some time and definitely effort on our part to help put all these pieces together. But I believe you're going to see tools and you're going to see platforms drive towards this. I got one more thing to mention here. You're definitely going to go ahead and see self-serve content. Yeah, that's right. If you've used Notebook LM, you know what I'm talking about. What's this stop an associate taking a sales sheet, uploading to Notebook LM, and then listen to the podcast on their own? There is room for that. I don't have a problem with self-serve learning, as long as it's orchestrated properly, because we're trying to reduce friction. And again, who wants to go in and log into an LMS, dig around and try to find that one course about that new product, and it takes them 10 to 15 minutes to find it and find that one slide or two slides where all that information's at in the course, right? So we're going to remove the boxes, and we're going to be creating these hyper-personalized or orchestrating hyper-personalized experiences down in the flow of work. Okay. Oh, here we go. Sorry. All right. So we are going to move from an order taker to definitely a strategic partner, for sure. No doubt about it. I see a future where the L&D function is federated to where we have some of our peers working on the tech and ops stack, to when there's changes or modifications in regards to AI technology that impacts learning and learning experiences, it's disseminated out down into the line of business or into the work. We have peers working down with the business there, becoming strategic partners, performance consultants, identifying data, orchestrating learning experiences, and then identifying, did we move the needle? Okay. So what do we get out of this whole AI deal? Data-driven decisions, predictive strategies, predictive analytics, personalization at scale, continuous adaptation of experiences based upon data, and enhanced ROI tracking. It's a panacea, right? I mean, these are all things that we've wanted for decades, and it's right before us. But we just need connected data, and we need access to AI and multiple models in such a way to hook all these things together to get these outputs that help move the business forward. So, what are things that we're going to be tracking on our dashboard? We'll be looking at the skills landscape as it's dynamic and it's changing based upon the relationship between machines and humans. We're going to be looking at learning engagement as we hyper-personalize and create these experiences out there. We want to verify business outcomes, and we want to, make sure that we have predictive information, predictive simulations, so that as we move forward, we have a line of sight on a role or skills that the business is going to need that will be very much human and not so much AI, right? But again, this is our reality moving forward. And so what does that mean for L&D? It massively changes how we show up within businesses. Not so much of a cost center anymore, but to a capability engine. So, where are we today? I'm excited about the possibilities. Again, having just come back from DevLearn, I can see again in the spring. I didn't quite know where some of these things were going to land, but now, it's getting a little bit clearer. And I'm excited about our future. I really do believe that we are going to find our place within the business so that we're adding tremendous value. Again, as the reality of business changes in real time exponentially, the requirement of upskilling and reskilling constantly is the new reality. And who better to handle that than us? Now, which part scares me the most? Well, companies that are replacing humans and they're thinking they're going to go ahead and build in automations without having human in the loop or human, um, running a proxy or running policy on all these automations. Yeah, it's definitely going to be rocky moving forward because everybody wants to save a buck. And if it means removing associates, yeah, that's happening now. But I believe that organizations that double down on their associates, that build a line of succession for novices to experts in the age of AI, become a skills-based organization, and understand what it means to create experiences within the flow of work, they're going to crush it. They're absolutely going to have velocity. Not only that, but these are the type of organizations that will be able to affect or impact the top line growth of a business by creating innovations, right? By understanding those deep problems, by understanding the marketplace, and then creating new and novel solutions for your customers. Tons of potential. So how do we evolve into a human machine performance analyst? Well, map where you are now. I've already told you the skills and capabilities that you should have, and begin to redesign your role with these capabilities. As you see additional functions appear within your organization, and I'm talking about AI specific functions, take advantage of it. If you get access to Power Automate, jump in. If you get access to Copilot agents, get in there and make one. Don't sit back on your heels. So, and I know I'm almost at time here, almost at the top. So I'm gonna break this down pretty quick. So again, you want to go ahead and inventory your specific skills, like what are your recurring tasks? Where does it fit on the human AI task scale? And what does that relationship with AI look like? Then you want to go ahead and put together your own personal skill stack, right? Data storytelling, AI literacy, business acumen, leadership storytelling. So you can transfer that information to leadership. And then you want to start small. So if you do get access to automations like Copilot agents or an agentic framework, you definitely want to knock it around. All right. Or if you see AI show up in a tool or platform, vet it out. Give yourself some agency, right? Move from literacy to fluency so that you can evaluate tools and platforms on your own. But run a small pilot. Go ahead and partner with IT and get one metric out of that experience. Something that's definitely going to show a lift, whether it be productivity, problem solving, or whatever. And this is a new story for us. Again, it's so much more than we just provide training. We are going to be an essential cog for the business. Not that we haven't been before. It's been tough to prove, right? We've been fighting that battle forever. It's going to be so much more evident how, when we show up properly, how important the human machine performance function is going to be. So AI is the instrument, but remember, you are most definitely the conductor. All right. So, yep, the book is out. And thank you for hanging with me as I went over chapter 2. There's 9 more chapters in there. And if you haven't picked up a copy, got the QR code right here. But I want to go ahead and say thank you so much, again, for all of your support. It's been a phenomenal ride, from the conception of this book to actually writing it to today, actually getting it out there in the world, and for 2026, amplifying it, right? But this story, it's about you, and it's about your future, and it's about how we show up as human machine performance analysts. And with that, I want to thank you so much for hanging out with me. I wish you all the best on your journey. Don't be a stranger, right? This is just the beginning of the conversation. I'll see you online. And again, thank you so much for your support, and I'll see you down the road. Take care.